Hello everybody, Bruce here with a video lecture for Module 3. I have Visual Studio Code running here on my Mac. Actually, I'm going to switch over to my PC because I think I have a folder there created already. So I have a folder created and I have this demo1.html file here. And in Module 3, Unit 1, you're going to learn a little bit about something called Emmet. Emmet is available in a lot of different web development editors, and it's actually built right into Visual Studio Code. There's nothing you need to do to get it to work. If you remember from week 1, if I'm in an HTML file and I hit this exclamation point, you can see that Visual Studio Code says, hey, that's an Emmet abbreviation, and I can hit enter, and it gives me this template HTML page, right? Because no one likes to have to retype stuff over and over again, right? So I'll do that one more time. Exclamation point tab. So that's how you create a new page, right, in HTML, in Visual Studio Code. Now let's say you wanted to create the header tag, and then inside of that, a nav tag. So there you go. Check that out. So I hit, typed in header greater than nav, and then I just hit enter, and I got the stuff to type right out there. I don't have to remember that, right? So then I can do something like this. I can say, all right, I want to have a main tag, and in the main tag, I want to have 2 articles. So I want to say article asterisk 2, and then I get 2 articles in the main. Okay, you see that? Now let's say I'm going to just go back here. Whoops. Again, I have main greater than article asterisk 2. Now it's going to take you a little while to learn this syntax. In fact, the Emmet syntax. There's a cheat sheet inside of Unit 1 that I've linked to, and you should check it out because it's going to make you a better web developer. And I don't know about you, I'm lazy and I don't like to type. So again, if I change that to 3 and hit enter, right, I get 3 articles in the main tag. Now let's say inside of the main there, I want to have 5 paragraphs. Okay, so let me just see if I get this right. P times 5. Now look at that. In each article, I got 5 paragraph tags, or I can make it a section like that. Okay, and there I go. I have, actually I did that wrong. 5. There you go. I have article with 5 sections, article with 5 sections, article with 5 sections. Do you see that? Do you see how that works? And what if I wanted to then take a step up in my little HTML tree here and put in the footer? So I have article and then sections, article and then sections, and then the footer area. Actually, you want footer outside of main. So what I need to do there is I need to step back twice. So I need to copy that caret there 2 times. And check this out. Look at that. There's a footer, opening footer tag and a closing footer tag. All right. One other thing here that I want to show you. Okay, I'm just going to Control Z, Alt Z to go backwards here. What happens? Whoops! If you want, I'm just too much coffee today. What happens if you want to just say create a paragraph, and inside of the paragraph you want to have some text, some like lorem ipsum text. You see that? Placeholder text. So I'll do that again. So I said, hey, create a paragraph tag, and inside of it put some lorem ipsum text. And if I go to the view menu here, you can see if I toggle word wrap, you can see there is the text right there. In fact, could I do something like this? Can I say, hey, create 5 paragraphs and put lorem text in each one? Look at that. I created 5 paragraphs of text. And I can just save that, right click, open with live server, And Shazam, look at that. I have 5 paragraphs of fake text, lorem ipsum text. Okay? So this is Emmett, and this is going to make your life as a web developer a lot easier, all right? So study it up inside of Canvas. There's a video that I linked to, some cheat sheets. So check that out. All right, let's go back to the Mac here. I have a slide deck, and I'm going to throw it into presentation mode. And I'm not going to go into detail on a lot of things. I'm not going to go through the objectives, the applied and knowledge objectives. You can go through those yourself. But I'd rather just get into the meat of the chapter. And I'm probably not going to cover every slide because there's other material in the book and Canvas to do that. So let's talk a little bit about the head section of a web page. Inside of the head section, you have several nested tags in there. The title tag, you see the opening title and closing title tags there with a title in it. And then you have a link, right, to something called a favicon. The favicon is that little icon that shows next to the title tag, right, or the actual URL, all right? So you'll get to play with that a little bit, I believe, in the 2 web development assignments that you have for this week. Okay? If you're watching this video in the future and there's not 2 assignments, I'm just letting you know because I'll probably reuse this particular video for a future class. All right. The head section also includes a meta tag. Okay, we've covered this before. The char set for UTF-8 literally covers almost every language in the world. So it's setting the character set, right? The characters that are used to display text. The next one is the meta name, description, content, and that gives some additional information for SEO and such. And every page should have the meta name and the meta keywords tags with those attribute values in there, all right? So it's in the textbook. It'll give you a little bit more information about why that stuff is important. And here, the SEO guidelines for the title tag. SEO, search engine optimization. Here is the things that, you know, why the stuff in the head section and the title and the meta tags are important. Same thing for the meta tags. All right. HTML uses heading 1, heading 2, and the P, right, block elements, the paragraph block elements. Now, I use the word block, and block means that these elements take up the entire width of the browser. So when you code an H1 or an H2 or a paragraph tag, and a div for that matter, they will take up, by default, the entire width of the screen. And what they'll do is push any content that's to the right of it down. Okay, so here we have an H1 with the San I can't pronounce this, Hoquin Valley Town Hall programs. That's an H1, which is the largest header. H2 is the second largest header. And then you have this paragraph of text, which has join us for a complimentary coffee. And then you have another H2 and another paragraph. And you use these use these tags to structure your page. And it is the HTML that matters when you structure a page. It's not the presentation, the way that the user sees it. Like when a search engine like Google, right, indexes a website, it looks for the semantic markup of a page using various tags, all right? So again, H1, H2, and paragraph are block level elements. So you can see here when that content is rendered, right, it is pushing the content down. It takes up the entire width, right, of the page, and it's pushing the next element down on a new line. And you can see H1, right, the San Joaquin Valley, right, that's a larger font than the H2, which is pre-lecture coffee, right? So just you'll see that and get to know that. And there's actually SEO guidelines, search engine optimization guidelines, for heading tags because they have meaning and importance, right? H1 is more important than an H2. And again, it says always use the H1 tag to identify the most important information on the page and only code a single H1 tag on each page. Then decrease one level, right? H2, H3, H4, H5, H6 as you go down and create additional areas that require headings, okay? Don't use heading levels as a way to size text, right? Instead, use CSS to size headings, all right? So if you want big text, just don't use an H1. The H1 tag and the text between the tags has meaning. All right, so block level elements, HTML uses block level elements. So you see you have a paragraph, and then you have something called a pre-tag. Pre-tag, and what the pre-tag stands for is pre-formatted text, and that pre-tag will honor spaces. So if you have like this code, which happens to be JavaScript, and you can see how it's all spaced over and stuff. Normally, HTML will only space things a single space. But if you use the pre-tag, and I suggest you play with it in your endeavors, right, it'll honor the spaces, all right? Further down, you can see that you have a block quote, and a block quote, if you've ever like seen a newspaper or a book where a particular quote is called out, that is a block quote. And then you can see the address tag at the bottom there. And you can see they're using it for a phone number. And then you can see an anchor tag that has, if someone clicks on it, it's going to email to. That should be mail to. I don't know if email to is a valid property value there. I'll check that out and I'll update something and let you know. So that's an inline element, okay? That's an inline element, the anchor tag. All right. So here's how that particular page will render in the browser. So I suggest you go and look at the HTML and see what it looks like. Again, this is all in your textbook. So inline elements, right? The M tag, which provides emphasis for screen readers, kind of like italics, right? The strong tag, which again is for screen readers, for the visually impaired, it's going to emphasize that text and say it louder. And then you have this keyboard thing here, right? When the dialog box displayed enter, right? BROCK21. So play with that and see. Actually, we'll see it on the next screen. And then we have on the next one sub and the closing sub tag. That's if you've ever like H2O, right? Where you see a subscript, right? Not a superscript. That's do we do a superscript? I don't see one on this page. But you'll have superscript and subscript. And then you have this Q tag to sleep. I can't see. Perchance to dreame. There's the rub. So look on the screen here. You can see it's quoted as well, right? That last line. But you can see here how, whoops. You can see here that we have the emphasized text. We have the strong text, right? We have the keyboard stuff right here. We have the subscript. And we have the quotes around that sentence there. Character entities. These are really important. So character entities, let me see if there's a slide here. There actually isn't one. It's in the book, which gives you a table of some of the most popular character entities. Think of things like, let's see, like a space. Like, see, you can have ampersand, NBSP semicolon, and then another one. That's a way of putting, I guess, 4 spaces inside of here. It's the browser interprets this code and is able to put spaces in there, so you don't have to use the pre-tag. Look at this one down here. I use this one all the time. Ampersand copy semicolon. That's a copyright symbol. Okay. So look on the next page here, right? That's a single quote. You see this? It's time. So here you have this ampersand RSQUO. Okay, that's what that what do you call it? That's what that HTML entity is for. All right, so study those. Again, the copyright sign, there's actually ones for spades and hearts and things like playing cards. Here are some of what we call the core attributes on this particular page. They're highlighted in yellow. An HTML element, and I think this was covered a little bit in a prior chapter, you can have an attribute and a value. Values are enclosed to the right of the equal sign in quotes, okay, double quotes. So here you have, for the HTML tag, you have lang equals en for English, and then the paragraph has a class of first, and then you have two classes being assigned for this paragraph right here. Hopefully you can see the mouse. I'm not sure you can. Paragraph class equals first and field. So this is the way you apply multiple classes to an HTML element. And then you have an ID, which says that this particular input, which is a form input control right here, where you type in information, has an ID of email. And only one element on a page can have a single ID. So we could not put another HTML element with the ID of email. Okay, and then you have a title attribute and value. The title attribute, you'll learn, you put on anchor tags, and the input gets one. Just so you know. So these are kind of some of the core attributes you add to HTML elements. And down here we have an accessibility guideline that says always code the lang attribute on the HTML element to identify the language for the page. And you saw earlier when I was using Emmet, it put that in there automatically for me. So that's what that little page looks like. Okay, an HTML page structured with semantic elements. So here we have a body tag and a closing body tag. We have a header, an H1 inside of the header. We have the main area of the page, which contains the main, content for that page with a paragraph inside of it. And then we have a footer tag with a copyright HTML entity and some information there. Closing footer and closing body. All right. So this page you can gather from the HTML tags its meaning, right? This is the header, this is the main content, and this is the footer. And that's really important, is to use what we call semantic elements, because again, it's these tags and such that help search engines and accessible technology that helps people with various disabilities to make meaning out of your page. Because just because you apply CSS to the page to make it look great, the person who can't see is not going to be presented the page the way that it's displayed to a sighted person, but it's going to use the semantic markup, to render the page and read it back to the user. All right. There are things for figures and fig captions. Just so you know, there are tags to do this. This is what we call an HTML5 element, and so are header and footer and main and such. So check that out in the textbook, just so you know. Div and span elements. Divs are what we used to use before we had semantic tags like header, section, footer, main, aside, article. Okay, and here's the way we used to write and teach this entire course right here. The span tag is really important because it allows you to assign a ID or class, so you can style it in CSS, to a few words in content. So that comes in handy because sometimes you only want to format and apply some CSS rules to a few elements. And the span tag is what we call an inline element. Notice we have a paragraph tag, which is a block level element, and inside we have an inline element. Okay, so it's really important. You can put inline elements in block level elements. All right. All right, and that's the way that page looks. Div and span elements. It says here, use div tags only when there's no HTML5 semantic elements available. And use span tags only when the tags for identifying content don't apply. So there are a lot of tags, which you've probably seen already through the few weeks you've been in the class. So always see if you can find before you resort to a span tag. And we did some span tags in week 1 and 2. You saw some of those, right? Because that's kind of the only thing, the only tag we had to do certain things, like change the color of a few words. All right. Folders, as you saw in the practice page and the first web assignment, it's important to break the various components of your website into folders. And you'll start to see that in some of the assignments going forward. Week 3 has 2 assignments, at least it does for the fall 2019 version, where you'll see other HTML files in other folders as well as images and such. So pay attention to that. The other thing you're going to get to need to know is how to reference images and other assets from within a web page. And there is a document in Canvas and associated website that I provided that will help you understand all this stuff you're seeing here. Absolute URLs. Those are URLs that include the protocol, HTTP, the domain, and the particular web page or file. So those are absolute because they absolutely point to something on the internet. And you won't use absolute URLs to reference things on your own website. You'll use relative or root relative type of paths. Okay, so you'll get to know that as you do the assignments for this week. Then you have like root relative paths, which say, hey, go to the root of the website and look for login.html, or go to the root and look for images and then the logo.gif file. And then you have document relative paths that, depending upon the page, right, that you're currently on, will look in the images folder at the same level and look for the logo.gif file, and same thing for books. So it's going to look at the same level in the folder system, the file system, for images and books. It's not going to have to traverse out of the current place where the web page that you're loading is. And then you can have there are ways to go up, okay, and use .. So that's going to go up a folder and then look for index.html or images logo.gif. All right, and that can be a little maddening, especially if you're new to this stuff. All right. The next thing is links. How do you provide linkages such that you've seen them before and they're things you click on that take you somewhere else or do something, and you code a link, right? A simple link using an anchor tag. It's the brace A, and then you have this href, which is going to take you to the page that you want to go to, and then you have the words that you want the user to click on, and then the closing A tag. Okay. You can see on the next one, there's it's looking at a subfolder of the parent folder over here. A link to a web page based in the root folder. Notice how you use slashes and double dots. And then a link to a web page at another website. That's when you're gonna use the absolute link. All right. All right, so there's that page with the links, okay? And when you see this different color link here, that means you've already visited that link, okay? You want to, the content of a link should be the text that clearly indicates where the link is going. Just don't say, click this link here, right? You probably want to state, click this link to visit the Clark College website, right? That type of thing. All right, the next thing are lists. Okay, you've seen lists. They're like bulleted things. You've probably used them in Word or Google Docs, right, before. The first list is what we call an unordered list, and inside of the UL there, you have what are called list items, and then you have a closing UL tag. So you have the opening tag, the closing tag, and then a set of opening LIs and closing LIs, and that gives you a bulleted list. The next list is called an ordered list, again with inner LIs, and that's going to give you a numbered list. So the first list is a bulleted list, and the second list is a numbered list. All right. So it's going to take a little while to get used to all these tags. I suggest you take notes and write this stuff down because it's hard to memorize. Okay. So the next thing is the IMG, or the image element, which is going to allow you to include images on your web page. And by the way, one thing I just wanted to go back here because I forgot is you always want to include what's called a title attribute with your links, because it'll help provide additional information to a screen reader. Right? It's covered in the textbook. I don't know why they didn't put it in the slide. All right, so here we are with our image element. src is the attribute. Then we have our equal sign, and the value here happens to be an image called Murac logo.gif. Alt is provided if the image can't be loaded, and it also provides an alternative description for people who can't see your image. And then you can have additional height and width attributes. And notice here there is no unit of measure. It's assumed to be pixels. Height equals 75. Don't put the px. The number, the attribute value also has to be in quotes. All right, so there it is. Look at that. So, yep, there is the image element, and there's how your browser will render it. So browsers support JPEG, GIF, and PNG. JPEG stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group. JPEG doesn't allow you to create transparent images. GIF does allow you to create transparent images, as well as PNG, Portable Network Graphics. GIF stands for Graphic Interchange Format. I use either JPEG or PNG, depending on whether I need transparency in my image. For images with useful content, always use the alt attribute, as we spoke about before. And the images that are used for decoration, code the alt attribute with no text. Okay, just so you don't confuse the person. Again, if you have an image that has no meaning whatsoever, it's just for decoration, again, alt equals quote, quote. All right. So here's a simple web page. In fact, you're going to be coding something like this for your assignment. And the HTML for that simple web page, and notice the semantic markup. You have the head section, and in the body you have a header, and then you have an image, an H2 heading, and an H3 heading. Okay? And then you have a main section, which has the H1. Notice the H1 is in the main because that's where the important stuff is. And then there's actually another navigation with a unordered list inside. And what you'll learn soon is that we typically will put some type of unordered list inside a nav element for navigation, and then we'll use CSS to style that element. And then we have the footer down at the bottom. Okay, and that's what that page looks like. All right, so that's all I have for the slides for Chapter 3. And I suggest you go through the book and throw up the code editor and start playing around, coding various things. The two exercises, let me bring up the what do you call it? Canvas, so you can see what we have here. Okay, so I'm clicking on Canvas, and my view is a little bit different than yours. So you can see here you have two assignments this week, And the two assignments are going to have you code some web pages. All right. So I'm going to step you through, and you're going to have to code the web pages. And I provide you with all the text. You're going to have to copy and paste it. And by the end, you'll have a page that looks like this, with a bunch of images, a block quote, an unordered list, some links that go to other places, and then I have you validate it, upload it to the CTEC server, etc. And then the next assignment here is going to have you code this page. Okay, it looks familiar. And I give you this image and I give you this file. All I do is give you the text on the page and not anything else. I'm going to ask you to supply all the HTML tags for it. And this page is going to get added to the web assignment number 2, as well as this image. So all the instructions are in here. All right. So if you have any questions, let me know, and you know where to find me on Slack, and have a good day.